Well, hello everybody, great to see you. Really sorry I haven't posted for a bit. It's just been a busy Easter, which is good for me. And I've finally got a day off now to come and do a bit more photography for you guys. So I'm delighted with that. Now, I'm down at Kinlochleven, which is about 15 minutes away from Glencoe village. And the reason I'm down here, it's a bit of a blue sky day, but there is a reservoir at the back of Kinlochleven called Blackwater Dam and Blackwater Reservoir. And the orientation of that leads right to the eye to sunset. So it's about 3:30 in the afternoon now, and the plan is I'm going to go and trek up to Blackwater Reservoir, which is about a 2-hour walk. And then I'm going to try and find some locations around there so I can get the dam looking down with the sun setting and some beautiful golden colours. So that's my plan. I've got the dog, so we're going to head on up. So come and join me and let's see if we can get sunset on Blackwater Reservoir. So it's great to be down Kinlochleven. I don't usually come down here for photography, but there is some brilliant locations. Now the village itself, like I say, is about 15 minutes drive from Glencoe village. And it was actually built because of the dam itself and the reservoir. And it kind of grew up around this aluminium smelter, which is what the reservoir was built for, to supply electricity and energy for the smelter. And believe it or not, Kinlochleven itself is in fact the world's first village where every single house was connected to electricity because of the hydroelectric here. So they called it the electric village, and that for that reason. So the plan's going to be, I'm going to head up, I'm now at the sort of base station. This is where the turbine hall is for the hydroelectric scheme which runs now. I'm at that station, I'm going to head up the pipes, I'm going to get all the way up to the top, kind of traversing the West Highland Way for a bit, and then we'll head off to the left there and we'll head up towards the dam itself. Now I'm hoping to get some competitions up there. I've been here many times, but I've never really been here for photography actually. I've been mountain biking or walking or something like that. So I'm interested to see if there is any good comps. Now I've been on the internet and I can't find anything at all really. There's just a few basic sort of photos of kind of camera shots from people's phones. So there's nothing really good. Like I say, the orientation of the reservoir does kind of mend itself to the way the sun's going to set tonight. My only thing is I'm needing some clouds, and as you can see, it's bright blue skies at the moment. There's no clouds at all, so I'm going to need some clouds to appear. There is the odd one over there, maybe over the moors a little bit, so I'm kind of hoping as the sun starts to set and it gets a bit cooler, we might sort of develop a few more clouds, because I want that nice pink sunset if we can get it. Okay, let's head up past the pipes, past the turbine hall, and let's head up to the dam itself. So what I've done is I've now walked past the sort of turbine hall, past the Blackwater campsite, and we're heading on up you can tee off here a little bit, and there's another hydroelectric scheme been put in. There's one over the way here. In fact, Kinloch has had another one put in as well, so there's a couple of new hydroelectric schemes. I love hydroelectric schemes. As a landscape photographer, it's always a bit controversial because you do really have to damage the landscape, and I can see with this one, we've got this road going all the way up to, this is Loch Eldmore, which is farther up, which is what they're using for hydroelectric on this scheme. And it does do an awful lot of damage, and if you watch my video down Glen Etive, I'll put the link at the top. There's bits of issues with sort of landscape photographers and construction work, but I will say they do put the landscape back. This one here, for example, they've got a load of trees that have been planted on the road, and hopefully that'll grow. You won't see the road, and then that should be it, and then we get that nice free electricity that we get for permanent. So that's quite nice, but yeah, it is a little bit controversial when they're building these things. Okay, I'm going to start getting onto the pipes now, so let's walk on up and see how the pipes are looking. So I'm about 10 minutes out of Kinlochleven now. It's a really tricky one to get lost on this little trek because you've just got these big massive black pipes everywhere that just lead you where you need to go. Just up in the distance, you might not be able to see it, but just that on the top there is one of the sluice gate stations, and that kind of converts it from the black pipes to underneath the ground, and when we get there I'll show you that. So that's where we're heading. We've got to get up to there first, and then the dam itself is still a good way over that way, so I've got a little bit of a trek yet. It's about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to the actual dam itself. Okay, onwards. Okay, see you right. Blackwater Dam is in fact the longest dam in the Scottish Highlands, but don't panic, this isn't it. This is in fact a little side dam as you come one of the tributaries as you're walking on up. It's quite nice, and it's actually caught my eye a little bit, and this is the thing with these adventures, is you're always looking for new locations all around you. I think that's the thing with a landscape photographer. You can't just walk now without looking at the landscape. You're kind of looking at key locations that might work for a photograph, and this has definitely caught my eye a little bit. I love the way the water runs on down the dam here and then flows off. Now the sun is really harsh, it's really bright right now, so it's probably no good for a shot, but definitely something to think about when the sun's a bit more dappled, a bit more cloud in the sky, and maybe a bit softer, perhaps with a bit of golden colour later on. But yeah, I quite like this, so I might come back for revisit this one. So after the gorge section and the dam, then you start going up a little steep section. It's a bit of a climb and a bit of a slog, but then you get up to the actual sluice gates here, and you can see this building behind me, these two buildings here, and that's where they control the flow of the water. And yeah, it's quite nice. I was kind of hoping for a good location here, maybe get a little shot, but there's nothing really grabbing me. The composition's just not working. It's quite nice sometimes when you see that little glimpse of Britain's industrial past on the landscape, and I'm not saying, oh yeah, it should be a wasteland, but it's quite nice because sometimes you get some nice compositions with these little bits of industry surrounded by nature. And I know when we get up a bit higher up, there is a bothy up near the dam, and there is a little fishing hut, as I recall, as well, which might be pretty useful. So we might get some decent shots up there with those two sort of in the landscape itself. But obviously my final goal is to try and get the big dam in there if we can. Okay, let's head on round then and let's do a bit more walking. Right guys, how you doing? Don't panic, it's not The Walking Dead. This is where the junction between the West Highland Way jumps, and we carry on left here. So this goes to the Devil's Staircase, and you say the Devil's Staircase, honestly, I've never seen so many Walking Dead today. It's all right for me to mark. These guys have walked about 80 miles from Glasgow. It's the long distance footpath from Glasgow. So by now they've done an 80 miler and they must have been on the go for about 5 or 6 days. So I shouldn't mock really at all. But yeah, there's been some very sore feet walking past me today. Okay, so we're not going to peel off right here. We're going to head on left and carry on towards the dam. So once you leave the West Highland Way, you start going up a few bends and go around the corner, and then all of a sudden you're right in the wilderness and you're just on your own, which is really nice. I just love being out in the wilderness on your own, but relatively safe because you've got the track in, you can't get lost. It's impossible to get lost. You just keep following it and following the pipes, obviously. So it's a lovely little location. This is just for a bit of peace and quiet. And you can't actually see any buildings looking this way. There's no buildings at all apart from the one round the corner for the sluice gates. I'm a bit worried because there is still a distinct lack of clouds, and we've got about 2 hours to sunset, and I'm not seeing anything at all apart from one lonely little cloud over Scoreelds Moor over there. And as the famous artist Bob Ross said, every cloud needs a friend, so I could do with some more friends knocking about. So just to fill it up, so hopefully we'll get that golden light and we'll get that nice reflection. But yeah, it's looking a bit dicey, but we'll carry on up anyway. We still might get some good comps. So then you have got to walk a bit of a trek. It's pretty flat most of the way, but it's a good old slog for quite a while, probably about 40 minutes. The views are absolutely spectacular. I'm not seeing anybody, you can't even see any houses or anything. You really are so remote. Over here is just all the mammals and there's just nothing here. I can see a track, there's a boffy miles away and I can just see that in the distance. But then what happens is you end up seeing this little lock-in on the right, on your left hand side, sorry. And then you see your first view of the dam itself, and from this distance it spans the whole valley, and it is a pretty impressive structure, it really is. And it's hard to believe that this was built in sort of 1905 originally and then finished by 1907, and without all that construction equipment that we have nowadays, it is just incredible that all that stone got slogged all that way that I've just walked about an hour and a half. So pretty impressive. Okay, it's very windy. I've come round and we've got a bit of a southerly at the moment, and today's really quite windy. So unfortunately I don't think we'll get much reflections, but I'm going to head up to the dam anyway. But yeah, I'm getting a bit of a chill on here, so the jacket might come out in a minute. Well, this looks a little bit ominous. I've got what looks like some kind of Blair Witch sort of thing set up here with some trees and stuff. Yeah, it's a bit of a worry. Well, this may be the last video you ever see, I don't know. Anyway, very odd. I wonder what this is. So as you get to the top of the track, you kind of get close to the dam, and then you see a little sign to the cemetery, and there's a little cemetery here, about 20 odd graves marked here, some with names, some without, of all the men that died constructing the dam itself in the early 1900s. In fact, it's quite poignant. It's quite sad to see some of them with the words unknown written on, because you know, these people were misfits from society, and they were hard working, and you know, they just didn't have any names. They were completely anonymous, really. So it is quite sad. There is a Mrs. Riley in there. She's the only female there. Nobody knows what the story is, why she's there, but the rest are all guys who worked hard and died into some really horrific sort of circumstances. They didn't certainly have the health and safety that they had nowadays. So yeah, it's quite sad when you walk around and just look at the graves. So I've approached the dam and turned off to the right of it, got to the right hand, very end side of it, and sort of met with the bothy here. And this bothy here, I don't quite know what the bothy was for, but this is the area where the camp was for all the navvies to sort of build, and they used to sort of stay around here. So whether this was some kind of big base or hospital or whatever, I'm not sure. I'm trying to look for a nice shot, but actually obviously it's facing the wrong way. It's facing west, and as you can see, it's all in shade, the kind of nice run downy bit, and round the back is a tad boring. I'm going to go and have a look anyway, but I don't think there's anything particularly great round there, so maybe this might be a better sunrise shot. Yes, I've come around the back, and kind of as I expected, really. It's a little bit flat. The buildings are not particularly attractive, so yeah, it doesn't make for a great shot, unfortunately. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to head on round to the other side of the dam, maybe get that sort of stretch of the dam, looking for a leading line of the dam maybe, but I know there's a little fishing hut around the other side as well on the reservoir, so let's head on round there and see if we can find something over there. I've probably got about an hour to sunset. You see the shadow's getting a bit longer now, so yeah, we're not too long. Still need some clouds, but yeah, I'm living hope. Yeah, so this is the fisherman's hut. It's not grabbing me really. I've got a little bit of a leading line with some rails that go out into the reservoir, which is quite nice, which they use for the boat launch. But that's not right. The orientation's wrong. If it was a bit flat, calm down, and had some clouds, I might get some backlit light and it might be all right. So I don't even think the fisherman's hut's going to work for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move around and maybe try and get a bit higher up, a bit of elevation, so I've got the water and the dam looking into the sunset. So let's have a stroll around. I'm sure there's a good comp here somewhere. Okay, I changed my mind with the reservoir. It just weren't working. The orientation just weren't quite right. So what I've done is I've come up to this little bank here, and I've stepped away from the cottage itself, the little bothy, and I quite like it. And the sun's setting just in the right place for it. There's a little bit of light on the gable end, so I'm quite liking this. I'll flip you around and I'll show you the composition. So what I've done is I've got the cottage here on the right hand side. The sun is just setting here. It's actually just out of shot at the minute. So the sun is just going to set over here, and then I've got the cottage sitting here, and I've got maybe a little bit of foreground interest in the foreground here. Let me just scroll on down. So using this sort of bit of tuft of grass there in the foreground, and there's the bothy itself in a bit more light. So I think that's going to work. So I quite like that shot. So let me get it set up. I'm going to sort of probably bracket. I'm probably going to have to focus stack as well, so there's a little bit of work on this one. But this is the shot, and if the shot works, here's the shot. Okay, well, that was all right. It's probably not a portfolio shot. It just didn't quite fit, and I just didn't quite have things working out for me. But you know what? It really doesn't matter. There's definitely some good locations here, and I'm going to come back here and give it a bit of time with a bit of better light and a few clouds. I'm sure there's some good spots here, so somewhere to explore. And let's face it, does it matter? I've had a wonderful afternoon. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I've hardly seen a soul. Once I turned off the West Highland Way, I've seen absolutely nobody. There's hardly any buildings about. So I'm just alone in the wild, and you can't beat that in the UK at the moment because it is so difficult to get that remoteness on your own. So I've had a wonderful afternoon, just me and Fern. It's been great, and I'm just so pleased you've come along the ride for me. Now stop what you're doing, head on down. There's a thumbs up there. Give me a thumbs up as like payment for watching this. It just makes a massive difference to my channel. And if you really like the content, as usual, go on down to the subscribe button, click on that subscribe button. If you click on the bell, you can sort of get your notifications every time I post. It was a bit of a long time between my last post, and I only do it for fun, so it's not too serious. So I will try and post every 2 or 3 weeks, but we're coming into my busy period with the season starting now. So I'll do what I can for you because I love coming out and enjoying the day. Cool, well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Oh, it's a very windy day. Ah, no!